Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Marsha.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. I had a school meeting this morning, so I'm doing a little, and I had one yesterday, so I'm doing a little bit of schoolwork, but somebody asked me yesterday if I was ready, if I was looking forward to being back. And I said, no, it's still July. I'm not looking forward to being back yet. That'll happen sometime in August. So,
well, it's like 73 today and beautiful sun. I mean, it's just like the perfect temperature today, I think. But I went over.
We've been having about the same low 70s, foggy in the morning. But today was sunshine early on. But I mean, some parts of the country and the world are having horrible heat wave right now.
Yeah. In fact, I just heard on NPR today that is there a Joshua Tree Park that they the Joshua trees are suffering, and they want to put them on the endangered list. I don't know what putting them on the list does to save them necessarily in the heat wave, but they're shriveling up. So anyway, yeah. Well, thinking of plants, I went over this morning to the rental property because I've talked about this, but it was rented out in October, and I've been kind of wondering about the yard, what was going on, because I think it's highly unlikely that the tenants are going to weed the garden or water the garden. So I was kind of wondering, and I did, it's one of those things that was just in the back of my mind. I should drive over there and look at it, where I got a text about 3 weeks ago from a neighbor behind, just kind of a heads up, it's getting kind of overgrown. So I called the lawn guy, came, and he's there today with his crew cleaning up the garden. So I went over to see the house, and it was pretty bad. So but what we're going to do is just have a quarterly system. I said to him, I just want to talk to you about maybe we set up like a quarterly schedule. And he said, I was going to talk to you about that too. So don't let it get so far gone.
Right.
But
yeah.
It's kind of a testament to how hard I worked in that garden all the time to keep it.
Yeah.
Because that garden has a terrible problem with morning glories. And I don't know what people call them in the rest of the country. Sometimes it's called bindweed.
Bindweed, yeah.
But once that's established, it's pretty much impossible to get rid of. You basically just are always at war with it. You never will win the war. You might win a battle, but you will not win the war. And
yeah. When I was doing the Master Gardener program, we had this one class session about weeds, and there was this reading that we did, and it was horrifying to read about the number of seeds per seed pod on some of these weeds. So every seed pod on the plant has, hundreds of seeds on some of them. And then, so a plant could have tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of seeds. And then they also gave information about how long the seeds are viable. And so these seeds can be viable for 50 years, right? And then bindweed has a root system, I want to say like 60 feet, that goes 60 feet deep.
Yes.
So it's like, it's like there's no way you can ever really, I mean, all you can really do is keep it from getting light, right? And weaken the root system. But yeah, eventually It will take over the world.
It will take after the
apocalypse,
the apocalypse or Armageddon or whatever. The only thing that's going to survive is what? Rats, flies,
cockroaches,
and bindweed.
Bindweed.
You know?
And then there's kudzu, the plants in the south.
Yeah.
Some of the plants in the south. Well, when we were in Arkansas, there was a man who was talking about, when we were visiting southern Arkansas, there was a man who was talking about mowing his yard and basically mowing trees because they have weed trees, which we don't have them here because we don't have enough water. I mean, there are trees that you might have grow as a volunteer in your yard, but he said if you didn't mow them, in one season, just one season, they could just take over your yard. And it was kind of amazing to see, houses that looked like they had been abandoned for a decade or more. And, they hadn't. They had just been, they had just been not cared for in a pretty short while. So, yeah, it was different parts of the country. We had ivy, as you know, in our backyard. And I don't kid myself. One bad year where Robert, neither one of us goes out and does stuff in the yard, and that ivy would be back.
Well, I think the ivy and the bindweed, if you look the other direction for too long, it will take over your house. It doesn't take very long. It's just like. But it also, like the root system, I know I would go out there and I would clean up the yard, and I sometimes felt that by you try to get up as much of the root as you could, but to your point, they go 60 feet or something crazy. Yeah. You can't, and they break off. And I always felt like if they broke off, that they sent out like two runners, like wherever that break was. It seemed like when you go out there and go to battle, you thought you had won that battle. It retreated and regrouped and came back stronger. Do you like all my battle references?
Yes.
But it did. It seemed like it came back with it mightier.
Well, dandelions do that. If you don't get the whole root out, that root puts out multiple dandelion plants. I used to tell my students that they needed to be more like weeds. Because basically, they'll grow in a crack in the sidewalk. They'll grow in a rain gutter on the top of your house. Like you hack them back, and they come back twice as strong. We should all aspire to be like weeds.
Well, plants. They're programmed to live, right? So they will live any way they can. So anyway, well. So that was what was happening today. But it's nice that I have somebody else weeding it because I've been having some problems with my knees, and I've been working on this for a long time, trying to get my knees in shape. And I thought I just need to go to the doctor, and I have been diagnosed with bursitis, which I didn't even know what the bursa is. Apparently, bursitis is inflammation of the bursa, hence the itis. And I think it comes from apparently it's like a cushion on your knees. You have it on your elbow too. It's like any of the, as she said, the pointy bits that stick out that don't have muscle or fat on them. It's the way to sort of protect them. And I think too much like kneeling and weeding and stuff, that's what's the problem. So I have I think to call it a brace is too strong. It's like a stretchy tube with that
like
goes
a sleeve
up,
kind of.
Yeah, a sleeve thing over my knee. So she said just to wear that pretty much all the time because there's the both. In fact, I think I'm just going to, she only gave me one. I think I'm going to order another one for the other knee because the right knee is the worst, but I have a lot of swelling and a lot of inflammation. So that's what is supposed to help. I guess the compression is supposed to help with the swelling. Okay. So, yeah. So she said, just rest, but she said, I'm not going to tell you not to hike and not to walk the dog. You need to move. You need to keep moving, but you also need to just sort of find ways to sort of mitigate the problem. Like,
Right.
So yes, I've reached that age now where I have a sleeve on my knee.
Well, it gives you an excuse to only do the fun exercise.
Well, and do you know, now that I have this on, I've been walking around. Do you know how many people have these on their knees? Like a lot of people, a lot of people have them on their knees. So I'm in good company.
Okay. I hadn't noticed, but now that you've said that, I'll probably notice.
It may be one of those things you don't notice it until you have to wear one of these, then you notice how many people have them. So I was surprised today. Anyway.
Well, at least it doesn't keep you, a sleeve on your knee doesn't keep you from knitting or spinning.
No. And actually, I think honestly, it felt better when I was walking. Because I sometimes, do you ever have this feeling like when you have to step down, you have this feeling that your knee's going to give away or something? Do you ever have that feeling? It might be, I think it's just some of the issues.
It might be related to the issue, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's related. And so it's not like curbs is not really an issue, but like, in the front of my house, I have that one step that's extra high.
Yeah.
That I feel it there. When I step down off of that. So I noticed today when I went down, I didn't, with the sleeve on and walked down that
more
step,
stability.
it feels more stable somehow. So
that's good.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, good. Maybe that will help. And you'll not be having this battle, not only with weeds, but with your knees.
Yes, that's what it seems like so far. It sounds like I'm at war with every aspect of my life. My knitting, the weeds, my knee. Anyway. Okay.
We can move to a happier subject.
Yes, let's talk about projects, shall we?
Let's hear about your happy project.
So, Happiness by Kyle Kunnecke, the pullover I'm making, Yarn Snob PowerBall. And Kelly, I looked up the colorway and I thought it was Happiness, and I was correct. It is called Happiness, which is 100% the correct name for that yarn.
Yeah. And the sweater is called Happiness too, right? Yeah.
Yes, the pattern is, yeah. So both Happiness squared. Anyway, so I have to, I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned in the last episode that I've now joined the front and the back, and I have to knit 9 inches, and I'm at about 6 inches. So you have to basically from the bottom of the cast on edge of the back, you have to knit 16 inches. And then I'll start the sleeve shaping. So I'm making pretty good progress. I work on this in the evening when I watch Netflix. By the way, I'm just going to interrupt to make a Netflix recommendation.
Oh, okay.
This is an old Australian television series. I think it was, maybe like 2004, 2005 or something. And people have probably heard of it. I had heard of it, but I had never watched it. And I got addicted to it's called Kath and Kim, about a mother, Kath, and her daughter, Kim. And there's 4 seasons. And the world is a little crazy sometimes, it feels like, right now, like things that are going on in the world. And sometimes you need escapism. And this is, I think, probably one of the funniest things. It may not be everybody's thing, but I think it's very funny. And so I did kind of a marathon and watching Kath and Kim and just knitting around and around and around in my tube on my happiness. And it made me happy just to, not take a break from the world. And they're only 20 minutes long, 25 minutes long. So anyway, I recommend that. It was actually very funny. And, but anyway, back to the project. So I'm coming along on that sweater. I have here in the notes that I'm still spinning the Manx Loaghton. That's not really true. I've not actually touched it since the last episode, but I had mentioned I had spun almost a pound of the 2-pound bag, but I had to set it aside because I wanted to start after our last episode when you were talking about the silk merino braid that you bought at Black Sheep Gathering at Eugene Textile Mill. I also bought 2 braids, the silk merino, plus I bought it's called a corriedale cross. I had to take a break from the other spinning that I was doing. So I spun an entire bobbin of the corriedale, and I did about 3/4 of a bobbin of the silk merino, but I wanted to ply them together before we recorded today. So last night I plied entire bobbin and wound it into put it into a skein. And I sent you a picture, Kelly. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
nice.
So the two braids, I'm sure they're the same dyes, but slightly different combinations. So the silk merino was pretty much all shades of blue. So it's like a deep kind of navy blue to a very light, almost kind of silvery blue. And then the corriedale had those same colors in it, plus a little bit of a gold sage green. And I think it's plied together beautifully. And I was very sort of conscientious of the two singles, making them pretty consistent, the same thickness consistently as I could. And I was very careful with the plying. And Kelly, you've often talked about when you ply, you sort of you intentionally over-ply a bit.
Yeah.
Because when you wind it off the bobbin into a hank, or on the niddy noddy into a skein, you lose some of that twist.
Well, and you lose it when most of the time, even if you are like me and you get impatient and you want to ply right away and not let your singles rest, like some people say they need to, even if you do that, the singles at the inside of your bobbin where you started spinning are old.
Right.
They're old enough that they've lost some of their twists. So what looks balanced what looks kind of balanced when you are plying, once you get it in the water and the twist comes back into those singles, it's not enough, right? The everything kind of relaxes, once the twist comes back into those singles that have aged a little bit and the yarn kind of relaxes into itself, you lose twist there too. And so, I think that I always like to have a little extra, what looks like overplied on the bobbin, because it comes out looking, sometimes it even comes out looking underplied once I washed it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's sections just from winding it onto the niddy noddy, there's sections that look like, oh, that could have been plied a bit more, But, because sometimes the truth is I watch TV, Netflix, whatever, Prime, when I'm knitting and spinning. And sometimes I get distracted. And so things are, sometimes my singles are a little thick, a little thin, and like, oh, it'll, and my attitude's like, it's okay. Because once you ply it, especially a 3-ply, and then you knit it up, it's really not that noticeable. I mean, now if there was, major changes, but if it's just a minor little shift in thick and thin, I don't think it's super noticeable. But I tried to be really, because it's such beautiful, the braids are so beautiful, I tried to be really careful. And I think it's really nice. I'm excited to see. So I have that first one bobbin was about 260 yards, 2.6 ounces. So I'm getting about approximately 100 yards per ounce. And I have 16.
Okay.
I have 16 ounces. And the other thing, Kelly, we talked a little bit about this too the other day, but because they're different fibers, I don't think when I have all my corriedale singles and my silk merino singles that they're going to come out even. I'm thinking, my hypothesis is that I'm going to have more silk merino left than the corriedale.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So
that's what I would think too. Yeah. Which will be nice because who doesn't like having extra merino silk?
Really? Yeah. So anyway, I will keep everybody updated on that, what I'm doing. And then The other thing I finished spinning too was in the last episode, I talked about buying the blending board from Celestial Farms, and I blended that entire ball of, it was a Jacob something or other. Now I don't remember. Anyway, I ended up with, I have 3 skeins here. Let me look at them. And I have about 250 yards of, I would say, worsted weight woolen spun. And it's, I said this in the last episode, it's, we would call it rustic. It's not, it'll be interesting to see.
It's art yarn.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it's art yarn. It'll be interesting to see, because we talked about in the last episode, some of the things I discovered about the blending board that I need to sort of work on, to change. Mm-hmm. But it's completely decent, usable yarn. I think it's, there's clearly enough here for a hat.
Yeah. I think it would make a nice hat because it is kind of fluffy.
Yeah, it's fluffy and very lightweight. But so anyway, that's what I've been doing. I need to post a picture of it in the thread for the summer spin-in.
Oh, mm-hmm.
But anyway,
yeah, we've been seeing quite a few inspirational things in that summer spin-in thread. So I haven't checked the hashtag recently, summer spin-in 2022 on Instagram, but the Ravelry thread has got some really fun and inspiring pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I was just, I should know this because I'm one of the co-hosts, but have we started our completed projects for the summer spin-in? Do we have a thread?
No, I didn't. I haven't started an FO thread. I guess I need to do that.
I think because I have a finished object now. So I need to
I'll let you can start the finished object.
Okay, I'll start the finished. I'll do that. I'll start it. But all of a sudden I thought, I don't remember if we did that or not. So we
just have that. Chat.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll start that. I'll start that.
But anyway, typically we draw from both. So yeah, we should get that going.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for projects.
Oh wow. Okay.
Pretty. I just, yeah.
Well, I collected all my finished spinning together today. Some of it I've already talked about, I think. I know I talked about it. I'm not sure I don't think I ever said I was finished. So I'm just going to kind of go through everything that I've finished so far. Okay. So I have the Oxford fleece, and I had used the Oxford and made a 3-ply, I think last summer or the summer before, and also done that with the Columbia. And I ended up using those in the garter squish blanket, but I still had some left. So that's what I wanted to do, was finish up the Oxford, finish up the Columbia, that kind of stuff. So I think I talked about this before I finished it. I know that, but I was blending the Oxford with some mohair locks, those really bright mohair locks that you were using with the blending board, the old sticky,
yes,
not well rinsed mohair locks.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second and say about the not well rinsed locks. I did wash these 3 skeins with the locks in there, and a little bit of dye came out, but not very much. So I don't know if I need to. I was washing them in just lukewarm water, not ice cold water, but not hot water. And I wonder maybe do you think if I wash them in let them sit in hot water and just let it cool, more of that dye would come off?
I don't know.
Or
probably more
matter?
Dye would. Probably the hotter the water, more dye would come out. But if you're not going to wash it in really hot water, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. I'm not going to worry about it.
Your water's also softer, much softer than mine. And that also makes a difference.
Okay.
The pH of your water makes a lot of difference. And then I use dish soap. I don't know if you washed or just soaked in water.
I use some Dawn dishwashing.
Okay. Yeah, because dish soap will make the dye come out. The heat of the water will make the dye come out, and then the hardness of your water will if you have hard water, that will also make the dye.
Okay.
And, it's more excess dye will bleed out than if you have soft water.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So
sorry I interrupted. I just wanted to say
good
that.
to know. Also, you didn't probably use as much as what I used in these skeins.
That's true. Yeah.
Of the mohair. So I blended the mohair and silk noil. And silk noil makes little lumpy bits in your spinning. Mm-hmm. Like with little tweedy bits, right?
Right.
And I blended in quite a bit of silk noil because I think I've mentioned this before. When I was a beginning spinner, I bought 2 pounds of it. Not knowing that you don't actually, well, I did spin yarn that was 100% silk noil. Mm-hmm. But once I did a little bit of that, it's like, okay, I don't want to spin this kind of yarn. That's not what this is for. It's for blending. So anyway, I have a lot of silk noil. So, and I had dyed a bunch of it at one point. So pink and turquoise and like magenta and green. And anyway, so I blended the silk noil and the mohair that were similar colors in with the Oxford. And I did finish these skeins. And when I rinsed them, a lot of the bright pops of color went away because the dye, I talked about this in a previous episode, the dye actually reattached onto the fiber, which is fine. It looks pretty. I like these skeins a lot. It's a 2-ply. Yeah, it's a 2-ply. And I got about 600 yards of this worsted weight. So those are finished, but I never talked about them. I don't think. I never said they were finished, but now they're finished. And then I had some Santa Cruz Island that I had carded back when I did the Santa Cruz Island skein for the fair. And I only just made the one skein for the fair, and then I stopped. And so I had a bunch of it on bobbins and some already carded but not spun. So I spun that up. So I've got about a half a skein, about 50 grams of that. And it's a 3-ply, the same as the one that I made for the fair, but I wasn't as careful. The one that I entered in the fair, I really tried to make it, fine and consistent. So that's done. And then the Columbia, I took the leftovers of the Columbia. Again, that was the fleece I started spinning and used in the garter squish blanket. So I had about 10, 11 ounces of Columbia left. Less than that, actually, because I added in a bunch of silk. So I blended in a bunch of tussa silk. And so now I have this 3-ply Columbia tussa silk blend. And I have about 10 ounces of this yarn. I haven't counted the yardage yet, but I have about 10 ounces. It's about fingering weight. So what would that be? 10 ounces be like 1,200 yards, maybe?
Well, I think I'm saying my these 2 braids that I just plied, 2-ply, and I think it's fingering weight, and I think I'm getting about 100 yards per ounce. Yeah. So what did you say? You had 10 ounces, so that's 1,000
Yeah,
yards?
So I'm thinking like a 3.5 ounce skein. That's about 100 grams. This is my math. So 10 ounces, that's about 3.5 ounce skein. So that's about 300 gram skeins. And typically a 100 gram skein is about 400 yards. We'll see how good I will report
our
back.
rough math, yeah.
Yes, I will report back. I didn't weigh it in grams. I weighed it in ounces. I don't know why, but anyway, I have about 10 ounces of that. So that's finished. No more Columbia fleece, no more Oxford fleece. I do have more Santa Cruz Island fleece, but I don't have any carded Santa Cruz Island fleece. So,
okay.
It's all just washed.
You've been busy.
Yeah, well, some of it was done before I went on my trip, and then I just never reported back. But the Columbia, I actually finished plying the Columbia this morning.
Okay.
And then I finished the one that's like yours, that you were talking about, the braid from Eugene Textile Center.
Mm-hmm.
I finished that, and I got about 8 ounces of 1-ply Huckleberry Knits merino silk and 1-ply Eugene Textile Center merino silk. And it came out really pretty. The merino silk from Eugene Textile Center didn't have any purple in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was blues, greens, gold, brown. And the one from Huckleberry Knits had purple, gold, brown, green, blue. The blue was in both. I think blue was in both of them too. Because I have some sections that are just totally blue, really nicely. And then I had some of the Eugene Textile Center yarn left, or singles left. So I applied those back on themselves. Oh, I have a tip. Something I had forgotten about. So when I got all done with that, I decided I was just going to apply it back on itself. And I thought, oh, I'll just spin it all onto one bobbin. All the leftovers that didn't get into I'll just continue spinning on this one bobbin, and then I'll make a center pull ball and I'll apply it back on itself. I had learned this early in my spinning career. Most of the time, I can get away with winding a center pull ball and then spinning from the center pull ball right away. Don't have to let it rest. Don't have problems. Don't have severe problems with it tangling. If you are spinning something that's 30% silk and 70% merino, and you decide you want to apply it from a center pull ball, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you wind the center pull ball very carefully, and then you let it sit for at least a day before you try to ply from it, because I had to break the yarn and rewind the ball like 3 times.
Now, why is that? What was it doing? Was it
It's so slippery that, like the shoulders of the center pull ball, the yarn would like slip off while I was winding, it would like slip off the shoulders. And so you could see it if you were watching, you could see on the center pull ball that it wasn't all lined up the way it was supposed to, that some of them would be kind of stretched, webbed over the center, over the top. And so then when you go to ply it and you're pulling from the inside and the outside, you get these extra parts that are then in the way, and you have to kind of keep unwinding them as you're plying. You get this extra bit that's in the way, and it rubs. So it's not only is it slippery, but it's also kind of fuzzy from the merino, and also from the silk has a little halo to it. And then it kind of sticks together. And so it looks like you have a knot, but you don't. You just have the 2 strands have latched themselves onto each other. Yeah. Anyway, it gets to be a bit, and then pieces fly out of the center that aren't supposed to fly out of the center, and it's just, yeah, it was a little bit painful, and instead of dealing with the pain, I would just break it off and then go rewind my center pull ball and so it's a small skein, but it probably is in like 4 parts. So I'll have knots, or, I'll have ends to weave in when I use that. But so word to the wise, if you are going to use merino silk to ply from a center pull ball, just wind your ball carefully and let it rest, because you're going to, and then just anticipate that you're going to have some trouble. But I think I would have had less trouble if I had let it sit in the ball for a while. Yeah. And get sort of stale.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
So.
Let your yarn go stale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that is the extent of my spinning projects.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I just wanted to talk about, I'm carding. I have another fleece on the drum carder. It's a little 3-pound Shetland fleece, black, and I don't think I'll get 3 pounds out of it when I'm done. I mean, I'm being conservative about what I actually put into the bats. So when, as I'm picking the fleece, as I'm picking it and I think, oh, this is too short, I toss it. Or, oh, this has a little too much hay in it. And it's really pretty clean. But there are some sections that have a little too much hay. Like, oh, this part has a little too much hay in it. I'm going to toss it. Or it has some tips, it has sunburned tips. And some of the sunburned tips, I can tell that they're going to break off. And so I toss that part. So I've been tossing out more waste than I usually do to try to get the nicest bats that I can. Because I think I'm going to enjoy spinning this.
I'm going to interrupt to ask a question because I have that black merino that I've been carding. And when you card, then there's the drum, the drum that you take the carded wool off of, right? And that's what you're going to keep and that's what you're going to spin. Then there's that smaller drum that ends up with all this other pieces on there. That you should just throw away. Anything that's on there. Because some of it looks like it's pretty good.
Yeah, I am now doing that because I have so much fleece.
But starting out, you would save that. You would like pick through it and send it through the carder again. But now you just pull that off and throw it away.
Well, what I would do in my younger days is I would save it thinking I was going to do that.
Oh, and then, yeah.
Sort of like the yarn scraps that you save, and so a lot of that, some of it I did use, some of it I used in felting projects, and some of it just got, it just had a little detour on its way to the compost bin.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think I will be.
There are uses for it. You can save it to stuff toys or pillows, or people use it for I mean, it can be used, but I have so much fleece that.
Well, I will. Next time I see you, I'll bring it, and you can throw it in your compost pile.
Right.
Okay. I think I'm going to try and just be aggressive in getting rid of it because.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to be waste, right? But you can do all sorts of things with waste.
That's true.
And one of them is compost it.
You bring it to your house to compost.
Right. Or you can use it to mulch your tomatoes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Well, I interrupted. So.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about was my fleece that I just bought at the Black Sheep Gathering, the California Red fleece, because what I really wanted to do was wash it and start spinning it. But I decided that I needed to work on this Shetland fleece that's been sitting in the garage waiting to be carded for a while. But I did take it out and I laid it on the ground, on a sheet on the ground. And I did something that I normally do that. I look at them, but then I normally just roll them back up and put them away. But this one, I decided that I was going to be strategic. And so I unrolled it and I looked at it and I noticed that there were some really nice, fine areas of this fleece, softer than I would have expected from what I had felt. And so I kind of took note of that. Of course, a lot of those areas are in the neck, which also has more hay than the other areas, but it's a pretty clean fleece compared to the Columbia that I just finished spinning. This is a really clean fleece. And I mean, just in general, it's a, clean as in it doesn't have a lot of vegetable matter. It's dirty. It needs to be washed, but it doesn't have a lot of vegetable matter. So once I noticed that, I thought, you know what, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of sort this before I put it away. So that when I do get the desire to wash it, I don't just, grab out as much as will fit in the mesh bag that I use, kind of willy-nilly and wash a batch of it, that contains everything.
Right.
And then I also decided to do a little more skirting. So I did take off some places that were dirtier than others. There was a little bit, I mean, the manure tags had been removed, but there were some places where it was kind of poopy. Mm-hmm. So I took those off. And then I looked, and there were some places where I was like, okay, this is a little short. I'm going to take this off. So I did a little skirting, a little additional skirting, because it was pretty well skirted for the show. There were some second cuts, which is where the shearer goes over, and does a cut, mm-hmm. and then goes back over the same area, so you get real short bits. Mm-hmm. So there was some of that, and not a lot, nothing that would have made me not buy the fleece or not want the fleece. I wasn't there for the judging, so I don't know what was said about it in the judging. But there were some, and so I kind of would take a part of the fleece and shake it, and they would fall off. Or if I saw an area where I could see some of them, I'd pick them off. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and some debris, lots of debris came off when I was shaking it. Some dirt came off when I was shaking it. So I did, I unrolled it. I did some skirting. I did some shaking. I did some sorting. And then I put the 2 parts that I thought were the softest mm-hmm. in pillowcases, and then put the rest of it into the bag that it was already in. So I have it all together, but it's in batches. Mm-hmm. So I can do a batch that's nice and soft, or I can do a batch that's more a medium style. So that's going to be nice. I think I've done that before. I mean, I know I have, because I knew what to look for. I'm pretty sure I have done that at some point. But my recent way of washing fleece is, oh, I feel like washing one. Oh, which one should I get? Oh, let's get this one. Okay, let's just grab out a bunch and stuff it in this bag and wash it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm in a rush. I'm impatient. Mm-hmm. I just want something to play with. And then when I'm carding it, I'm realizing that I'm carding together some of the best bits with some of the worst bits. And I don't really want to do that. So that's what I've been doing with this California Red. And so now I'm really looking forward to washing it, because I've got it in mm-hmm. 3 batches. Yeah. So yeah. I'm going to enjoy that fleece, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested to see how this is all going to turn out, because mm-hmm. I know I think the first fleece I bought was a Shetland, and I just washed the whole thing, and it's mm-hmm. all jumbled up. Right. And then I took a class from Judith McKenzie, where she talked about how you're actually supposed, the fiber's different on all these different parts of the animal. And so mm-hmm. Some is quite coarse all the way to something that's very, very soft. And so you do need to separate it. I didn't know that. So I just dumped it all in one big pot to, wash or bucket to wash. And so anyway, I think this is a good that you're doing this.
Yeah, I'm going to try to be a more technical fleece prepper.
Yes.
A little more discipline in my mm-hmm. work.
Yeah, discipline.
So yeah, it'll be fun. But there's, I have other fleeces too that I'm kind of I think I should probably wash at least 3 fleeces this summer. Mm-hmm. Not card them. I don't think but I have some fleeces in there that I think I really should do the sorting again, or, go through and do a little bit more skirting, shaking, mm-hmm. sorting, and then at least wash some of it, if not all of it, because they really shouldn't sit unwashed for as long as I do that. It's not the best practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's it. That's my wow. my fiber adventures. Yeah. I made another hat. I think I did that right after the trip. Another charity hat.
Yeah.
But I've been focusing on using up leftovers of mm-hmm. all sorts. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my projects.
All right. Then I think the only other thing we have to mention, I believe, is, since we were talking about spinning, is the summer spinning continues, and that goes through September 5th, which is U.S. Labor Day. And if you are on Instagram, you can use the hashtag SummerSpinIn2022. And
we're going to try to draw. We'll be drawing prizes from Instagram and from the Ravelry threads.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try that again. That was
talked
fun.
about it last week, but we have some prizes that have already been donated. And we'll have some more prizes too. We're working on that. And as we talked about earlier, I'll start the thread for finished objects because it sounds like people might be ready to start putting some things in the finished object thread. So I'll start that. And is there anything else we want to talk about?
If you were one of the winners from the Stash Busting Blanket Along, get in touch. I think I have, everybody who's contacted me, I think I have gotten you your pattern, but I don't think everyone has contacted me. So go ahead and contact me and let me know the pattern of your choice. And I don't have handy the names of the winners. But that was a couple of episodes ago. I went and double checked, and the two people who need to get in touch, the winners from the Blanket Along, are I Heart Books and Laura Sue. Please get in touch and get the pattern of your choice up to $10. So yeah, get in touch with me and I will get you your pattern because I don't think I've heard from everybody yet.
Okay.
And if you did message me and you haven't gotten your pattern, let me know that too, because I was on vacation and some things could have slipped through the cracks.
Yeah. So that's it. Should we say goodbye?
Okay.
Do we have nothing else to talk about? I can't believe this is so short. I mean, looking at the timer, it's just 48 minutes. And
all right.
I guess that's it then.
Yeah.
It seems so weird that we're so short this time.
I know.
All right.
What are we missing?
We must be missing something. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Knitting projects. Neither one of us, well, you had your sweater, but I have a knitting project. So, yeah.
Yes, but right now I'm just going around, as I say, around and around and around. So, anyway. Okay, Kelly. Well, we'll talk in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.